Well, have you heard of GoodSpace? GoodSpace Schools is presented as a school-wide support system that, quote, empowers school teams to create positive environments where every student can overcome wellbeing challenges and achieve their best learning outcome. They also say that schools can efficiently screen entire year groups or schools in just 10 to 15 minutes and receive immediate results, gain a dashboard overview of student wellbeing concern and track your school's progress over time. And they say they can enhance attendance engagement and foster a positive learning environment by addressing student mental health concerns sooner. Well, sounds very good, doesn't it? But what information is GoodSpace asking students about? What age group? What happens to the information? And what involvement and notification do parents have in all of this? Well, one parent is on a search to find out because his 13-year-old daughter was asked private and intimate questions such as, has she had sex yet? 13-year-old. So we thought we'd help him in his research of this so-called GoodSpace and the associated Heeadsss assessment program. Let's check it out. Well, he needs no introduction, ex-MP, RCR host, panellist on Straight Talk, and good buddy Rodney Hyde. Rodney, what got you racked up on this particular issue?
Well, you feel as a parent that you're always under attack these days because you can't rely on the typical institutions to preserve your kids' childhood and their innocence. And we work very hard as parents so they can have a great childhood and grow into be great human beings. But you have to have always your guard up. They can't just wander into the public library and browse at books because so many books are inappropriate. And it's the same with the schools. My children have attended Arrowtown Primary School and Wakatipu High School. They all love school. They've been great schools. But there's stuff that's going on there that is absolutely toxic. And it's not just Arrowtown and Wakatipu, it's every school. It's not just the state schools, it includes the private schools. It truly is shocking. And it's like if you imagine the worst activist at a gay pride event running down Queen Street in charge of education and what they would provide, that actually gives you the picture of what you're up against. The activists have actually taken control of the curriculum and large chunks of what you'd call well-being, caring for the well-being of children. In this particular instance, my wife and I went with our daughter to a rowing event. We left on the Friday morning to Twizel, had a great weekend. It was a school rowing event, ironically. We got back on the Sunday night. On the Monday morning, my wife checked her emails to discover to her alarm that there was an email from the deputy principal sent out Friday morning. We'd left early, saying they're running this survey of well-being, and it would be online and it'd be run by some crowd called GoodSpace Schools. Immediately our hackles were raised, but we were flabbergasted, that the thing was we didn't get to opt in. Our requirement was we had to opt out, and we were given no notice. By the time we got the email, Friday morning to Monday morning, we had lost our opportunity to say we did not want our daughter doing this. Our daughter filled out the survey. I asked her about it. She said it was weird. I said, well, what were the sort of questions? And she said, well, they asked me whether I was having sex. I actually had to be extremely careful with my daughter because I just wanted to hit the roof, Bob.
I bet.
And of course, it's not her fault.
No.
But I just can't imagine anything more inappropriate than asking a 13-year-old girl, is she having sex? I mean, it's beyond my comprehension that anyone would think that was okay.
Yep.
So you sort of rage against the machine, if you know what because you don't know who to go angry at. And like I say, I don't want to be that parent that's always in a fight with or stoush with the school.
Yep.
I fired off a note to the deputy principal, who, by the way, took days and days to get back to me. They told me the answers aren't available to me, and in a funny way, I can understand that. But I asked for the questions. They've told me that the questions are copyright, and they're checking with GoodSpace Limited to find out if they can let me see the questions that were asked my daughter without my permission. Meanwhile, of course, I did a quick research on GoodSpace Schools Limited, which was run by some character, I think he's called Stuart someone or other, who self-describes himself as a visionary. So he's suspect. An Indian lady that I can't find anything about, and she describes herself in glowing terms also. The company was only set up in 2021. They boast at being in over 100 schools.
Yep.
They have a holding company, which they're the directors of also, and they own the holding company plus another lady. So this is just a quickly assembled little company. The registered office, by the way, for this company is the Indian lady's residential address.
Wow.
Right? So this isn't a bona fide company that you would trust with your intimate and personal details. Now, I'm sending in emails to the school saying effectively this: what gives you the right to ask a 13-year-old girl this? And what makes you think this would be a good idea? And what on earth has happened to this information? So it asked them about drug taking. It asked them about, do their parents fight? Asked about home life. Now, all this is dressed up as a well-being survey to pick kids at risk. Well, any school and any teacher that's any good can identify kids at risk in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
They're in their class. They're in the playground. They're in the school. They're seeing them every day or not seeing them every day. So why are they asking all the kids this information? And what is happening to the data? Because it would seem that GoodSpace Schools Limited now has the data by name of kids in over 100 schools, and there's other companies doing this without parental authority. And they have the names of 13-year-olds who like drugs and like porn. And they have the names of 13-year-olds who are virgins. This is disgusting. If a school teacher in school, or outside school for that matter, asked my daughter whether she'd had sex or not, I'd make sure they were fired and never work as a teacher again.
Yep.
Because there's no good reason for that question.
No. Okay, well, I after you alerted me, I did do a little bit more research, and so for the benefit of our viewers who are thinking, "Oh, come on, Rodney, you're blowing this up," that's not actually that bigger problem, and maybe it was just misrepresented. So I had a look at the GoodSpace website, and I looked at the page that was especially for parents. And I know this is possibly the first time you've seen this, Rodney, but for
Yep.
our audience, let me just enlarge it. And it says, well, you can opt out by notifying the school up the top there. So yeah, it's opt out rather than opt in. And it says the survey responses can only be viewed by a very limited number of individuals who are employed by the school, such as head of pastoral care and guidance counsellors. In urgent cases, students may be identified for following up, and where there are serious concerns, the school will contact parents. So urgent cases, the school just does it, and they only really contact the parents. I mean, they really don't quantify what is a serious concern. Now, the red flag amongst all of that is down the bottom there where it says based on the Heeadsss model. Now, the Heeadsss model is part of this big red flag. So you go and have a look at Heeadsss assessment. Now, Dame Sue Bagshaw is involved with Heeadsss, which is an immediate red flag, pro-abortion, pro-puberty blockers, a real concern. And so this assessment, you can see there in circle, sexual health, mental health, and substance use. And look at that bit that I underlined down the bottom there. Consider whether you will see the young person alone and how to explain that to the family or caregiver. So then I had a look at the questions. So some of these questions may have been asked of your daughter. I mean, GoodSpace say that they're using the Heeadsss type assessment. So these are questions about drug use, cigarettes and alcohol, but here's the questions about sexuality. And they say, have you ever felt that your gender identity doesn't match the sex you were assigned at birth? Okay, so immediately inculcating and indoctrinating gender ideology. This is for a 13-year-old, have any of your relationships been sexual? Are your sexual activities enjoyable? What does the term safe sex mean? Yeah. What does the term safe sex mean to you? How many sexual partners have you had? And what is a contraception? It gets worse. Then asks about suicide and says, have you started taking alcohol or drugs to help you cope? And sometimes people feel like killing themselves. Have you ever felt that way? So this is an unknown person, or maybe a surveyor talking to your child. Now, I then looked at what happens after this assessment is done.
Bob, can I just interrupt you
there?
Yeah. Can I just interrupt you? It's a little worse in a way.
Yeah.
Because the survey that my daughter did and her year group, so it was the entire year 10 year group, it's on their laptops in the classroom.
Wow. So it's not a verbal one-to-one, keep it confidential.
They don't even have that safety. I mean, They're literally sitting in their classroom told to fill out this form, and they're on their laptop answering these intimate questions, not a survey with a person in front of them, online anonymous survey where the answers are going goodness knows where. Because you can't tell me that when GoodSpace hands it across to the school, they don't have it sitting on in their database. It's impossible for them not to.
Exactly. So then it says, check with the young person which adults they trust, reinforce your role. Remember, this is a school speaking, as a support, and ensure they have contact details, not for your parents, but for yourself and appropriate professionals. Where appropriate, you can get consent from the young person, and where appropriate from the family whānau for any onwards referrals. Or what do they define as appropriate? Now, I went back to GoodSpace, Rodney, and just checked to see what resources they were highlighting. Okay, so they talk about alcohol and drug education, and they send through to this website, Tutudu, which talks about the fact that Dare and Fade were no good because they focused on abstinence, and they reckon that, promoting, saying no to drugs, just has limited effectiveness. But then halfway down, they mention relationship, sexuality, and education, which I will come back to. Then they refer people to drug resources and about cannabis. And you'll see down the very bottom there, they say, stop it when you start to feel unwell. So not don't even touch it. I mean, they mention up the top, best having drugs is the best option. But then there's this kind of, oh, well, stop when you start to have them. Don't smoke cannabis and drive. And then you go to the page on MDMA. This is all from the Druggie Foundation. And this is for MDMAs. If you choose to use what you think is MDMA, get it tested. Over the right-hand side there, drink water. Look after your mates. And then down the bottom left there, if you choose to use, less is best, and avoid mixing. And then they've got their creating rainbow inclusive school policies and procedures. And they even refer to a resource down the bottom there for Christian schools, which is the Inside Out's Chariot booklet, which is just a complete distortion of biblical scripture on the sexuality issue, and how students are leading the way in making schools safe for rainbow youth. This is all coming out of the GoodSpace website where they're referring. Now, look, in fairness, they do refer to one or two good sites that I would recommend, like the Light Project, which deals with the porn issue. But this seems like just a covert group for more RSE and drug liberalization. And basically getting kids thinking about it, and your 13-year-old daughter thinking about it, and it's all disguised as this well-being and we can better look after your child, but where are the parents in this? So, Rodney, I'm interested, now that you've seen all that, you wanted to hit the roof when you first found out. It's insidious, isn't it? It is just everywhere that they're trying to indoctrinate our kids.
It's absolutely everywhere. And I mean, you ask my daughter, 13 years old, have you had sex yet? In her mind, she'd be thinking, I didn't know it was an option. What GoodSpace have done, what the school have done, has planted it in her head that having sex is an option for her. They have done that.
Yeah.
She's underage by a long way. I don't understand why the police are knocking down the doors of our schools and knocking down the door of the director of GoodSpace schools for what they're doing to our children. We know why they're not, because the entire apparatus of the government has been taken over, including the education system, by the worst of the activists you see in Queen Street. But I feel as though it's a funny thing, Bob, because I had read your work and the work that Let Kids Be Kids had done on Heeadsss, and you think, oh yes, and you go along to your school. It's a lovely school, lovely parents, lovely kids, lovely teachers. I love it. And I can't factor into my head that they would do this. So I have this great, amazingly sense of betrayal. And what they're doing to my daughter and other young boys and girls, to me, is beyond evil. And they have no idea the lengths that a parent such as me is prepared to go to protect them. Now, of course, I'm not talking about violence, but I'm not going to stop. Parents shouldn't stop. Grandparents shouldn't stop. We have to unite and stand up.
Yep.
Not just as conservatives, not just as Christians, but as mums and dads, grandparents, and family, but also as members of a society. Because we can't succeed as a society unless we raise good, well-balanced, stable, productive human beings.
Mm.
And that requires a childhood where you start off as a baby and a toddler and you go through the phases of childhood to become an adult. Schools used to understand this. The academics like Dame Sue Bagshaw used to understand this. They've thrown that all out in a fit of madness or demonic possession. I do not know which.
Mm.
But it's
Well,
biblical in
yeah,
terms of what they've taken on board this evil to talk to kids in this way.
yeah.
I would
And
never have believed it possible, Bob.
well, it's a state intervening in families, and I mean, it starts right from preschool, and then it's indoctrinating kids with this gender and sexuality, and then it's feeding our kids because apparently parents don't have that role. It's telling parents how to raise their kids. It's just this constant interference, and I'm glad you're speaking up. Hopefully, some parents will be aware
Well,
now of
here's
GoodSpace
a question.
and Heeadsss-Up.
Here's a question for you, Bob. I know your children are older, but next week I have a regular scheduled session, once a term or once every 6 months, I don't know which, with my daughter's teacher, the teacher that's sort of responsible for her pastoral care. They have a Maori name, Ako or something, and it was in her class that the survey was undertaken. What should I say to her? What would you say to her?
I would be asking her, what does she see as the parent's role? What should the parent be involved in? Why are parents not being included in all of this? What is the role of the family versus the role of the state? And any teacher that doesn't say that they are there to serve the family and serve the child shouldn't be a teacher, in my view. If they think that it's their role to raise the child and not the parents, then I would have my child out of those schools. And I've spoken to some teachers just to see whether this is actually an issue in some schools. As you said, it's in about 100 schools. Unfortunately, we do know that the area that you're in does suffer from quite a bit of wokeness and virtue signaling. So you're the test case, and so you're the parent that has been sent there on a mission. But I think as we throw the light on this with the relationship sexuality education, because we threw the light on what they were teaching, there was an uprising of parents. And like you say, it's not only conservative, it's not only Christian, it's also parents from right across the spectrum. This is what they call an 80-20 issue. 80% of parents know that this is problematic, but it's the 20% activists that are getting it across the line. And it's being done behind this veil of, we want to look after your kids. But what people don't realize is the indoctrination and the agenda and the narratives that are going on behind, and the suggestions that are being placed into kids' heads as well. Rodney, we will have to get an update from you on how this goes.
Yes, I'll report. And thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob, for pushing this for our kids. And thank you, Bob, for this platform to alert other parents and grandparents to what is going on, for certain in your children's and grandchildren's schools.
Yeah, and you did allude to Let Kids Be Kids did a analysis of it as well. So there's a number of child protection groups like Family First, Let Kids Be Kids, and I know you've been battling on this as well on RCR. So I think we all need to continue to speak up about this. Anyway, Rodney, get your blood pressure down, but keep fighting on behalf of parents, because our children need that protection.
Thank you, Bob.